Well, gosh, thank you. Where do I go from there? Like Trish said, we met through a common friend, and the minute we met each other, we knew there was a connection, and once again, you realize why God puts people in certain people's lives, and that's why I'm here today. My name is Teresa Romer, and I'm a proud mother of 6 children with 6 grandchildren, and I will begin my story now, I guess. There's nothing more personal than the way one grieves. For most of us, being faced with the loss of a near and dear one is not only unimaginable, it is one of our worst fears. This fear is not unfounded, though, because no matter how prepared you think you can be for the demise of a loved one, when it actually happens, you really have no idea how you will react, emotionally and physically. Because no two people are alike, it's only natural that every individual's reaction to a deep personal grief or loss is very unique. What is useful, however, is to hear from others how they dealt with loss and grief. And it gives you strength and comfort in knowing that someone else has felt a similar pain and lived through it. That is the premise of one of which the Grief Resource Center, like the one in the Woodlands, is founded. For someone reading or hearing about me for the first time, my background and credentials may seem somewhat disconnected to the topic of this up-and-coming motivational speaking engagement. Health and fitness expert, successful entrepreneur, acclaimed award-winning author, personal trainer, sports nutritionist, bodybuilder, and winner of many beauty pageants, including the Mrs. Texas. So where does all of this fit in with speaking about grief and loss? If one were to believe that inner beauty is what reflects on the outside to make a person beautiful, it would be logical to assume that my life has been easy, uncomplicated, and happy. Possessing inner beauty would be easy for someone who has not seen a life of pain. In my case, the story is quite the opposite. Not only has my life been challenging in many ways, I have also seen extremely deep and personal loss and grief. But I, myself, have lived through all that with a smile, and I strive to help others face grief with the same tenacity that I have done. I was living the perfect world until a dark, dark day in 1990 when I received a phone call that my little brother, my best friend, my buddy, my pal, had had a massive heart attack at the age of 23. I thought my life was over. It was devastating. I didn't know how I could go on without my best friend, my buddy. And yet I knew by looking at my 2 small children that I had at the time, which were 2 and 4, that I had to go on. Then to make matters worse, my already troubled marriage became worse because of the stress of the loss of my brother, which ended in a divorce. So now we all know that grief comes in many, many ways. It can come with a loss of a job, it can come through a failed marriage, it can come through a death, it can come through a loss of a pet. So now I have endured 2 major losses in my life. Not only my little brother, my best friend, my pal, but now my husband. I've lost my marriage. So somehow, the little girl that was raised on a ranch in Nebraska decided to pull her bootstraps on and say, you know, life goes on. I don't know how, but somehow it has to go on because I have 2 children to take care of. And now we fast forward to 2006. I thought my life was perfect again. Things were going great. Great job, great car, great house, great kids, great career. And lo and behold, over the 4th of July weekend, I received a phone call that my son, my 19-year-old son, has now been killed in a car accident. I thought the pain that I went through losing my brother was the worst pain I would ever go through in my life. But losing your child is like someone reaching inside of you and pulling your stomach and your heart and everything that's inside of you out and throwing it on the floor and stomping on it. And I remember standing in that funeral home, wanting nothing more than to get into the rental car and plow it into a tree and kill myself, because the pain was more than I could endure. I had never experienced this kind of pain in my life. And the only thing that saved me was I looked over at my daughter, who was sitting at the table with me now. I looked at her and I thought, you know, how selfish would it be of me to make my daughter lose her brother and her mother in the same week? So somehow I found the courage again to go on. No, it's not easy. No, it's not something that you just can just snap your fingers and it just gets better overnight. It took a lot of counseling, like what you received at the Grief Resource Center. It took a lot of great friends. But more than anything, I became someone I didn't know who I was anymore. This one, you know, through the death of my brother, I felt like working out was my best friend, and I worked out and I worked out and I worked out, and that helped me relieve all of that stress. But this time, working out didn't work. Getting out of bed was not an option. Doctor said, well, here's some drugs. Drugs will help. And I thought, well, why take the drugs? Someday I'll get off the drugs, and then I still have to face that pain. So counseling was my answer. Whether it was counseling with the people at church, or whether it was counseling with counselors, or whether it was just a friend that wanted to listen. My best friend, you know, sometimes you don't realize it when you're going through something painful in life. You tend to hurt the people that are closest to you. And I can remember my girlfriend, my best friend in Jackson Hole, saying, I'm going to be there for you, Teresa. I need to be there for you. And I said, no, that's okay. I'm okay. I'll get through this. And I wouldn't even allow my best friend to be at my son's funeral, because I thought I was just this rock. Oh, it's okay, I'll get through this. And it wasn't until a couple of years later, we were at an event together in Dallas, and she told me how hurt she was from what I had done by not allowing her to come to my son's funeral. And I never knew that. I never knew that I'd hurt her, because when grief hits you, you're just in a fog. You don't even know what you're doing. You don't know what you're saying. And you know, it hurt me deeply to know that I had done that to her. But I explained to her, I said, you know, I don't even know who I am anymore, because I'm not the same Teresa I was before my son died. And it scares me, because I don't know if I'll ever be that person again. And she said, you know what? You might not be that person again, Teresa. Maybe God wants you to be someone else. And it's okay, because I still love you. And lo and behold, it's taken many years now. It's been 6 years. But lo and behold, the old Teresa that existed before my son passed away is back. But it's not been an easy road, by no means. And last year, I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro as a fundraising event for a charity that's very near and dear to my heart, called Child Legacy International. And when they say that you can feel your loved ones around you, it's true. I have felt my son many times around me, but last year, when I almost died on Mount Kilimanjaro, I prayed every step of the way at the top when I was going down severely, because I had a parasite, I had 104 fever, I had high altitude sickness, I had blood coming from every orifice of my body. And yet I kept saying, baby, Mama needs your wings. Mama needs your angel wings. Mama's got to get to the top. Please just, because really to this day, there's no reason why I got to the top. It's unexplainable how I got up there, because by all means I should have died. But I say it's because my son knew how important that fundraising event was, and my son gave me his angel wings, and my son made me get to the top. And by doing so, we raised $100,000 for that charity. But, you know, people say, well, gosh, you don't look like you've been through all of that. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. But every time I want to have a pity party and feel sorry for myself, I realize that there's someone possibly sitting right next to me that's had an even harder road or is going through something much more severe than what I'm going through. Today, I found out just by arriving that our MC lost his one and only child in 2010. Now that devastates me because that was your one and only child. And I still have one left. So I feel very blessed and graced that I still have a child left. But see, now I suddenly think that what he's going through is 10 times worse than what I'm going through. But that's how you get through it. You just come to realize that even though you think your story is the worst in the world, there's someone with a much harder story, and they're going through something 10 times worse than you're going through. But I believe in the faith of God, and I know that He has a plan. I don't know what it is, and I may not know what it is till I meet Him face to face in heaven, but I'm somewhat jealous of my son and my brother because somehow they got what they were supposed to do on this earth done really fast. And here I am still trying to figure it out. But I believe God's using me, and He's using me for what I've gone through for His work. But then when I didn't think it would get any worse, August of 2010, my father suddenly passed away at a very young age. And so I feel like the 3 out of the 4 most important men in my life have left me. And it's hard, but once again, my father of great religion said, Teresa, life goes on. It's not always easy, but you can do it. And so, with that being said, I feel so honored and blessed that Trish asked me to be here today to help raise monies for the Grief Resource Center. I truly love you guys and what you do down there. You're terribly understaffed. There's so many people that need counseling and need help in this world. I wish we had 10 times more space than what we have down there, but all will come in good time. But with that said, I truly, truly appreciate that you've all taken your time out of your Saturday to be here and to help make this a successful event and to listen to my story. But definitely whatever you're going through, if you need an ear to listen to your story, the Grief Resource Center is definitely the place to be. And I love you guys, so thank you very much.
Please give Teresa another round of applause. I'm lost my place on here, but I'm going to pick it up. Before we get into the next part of the door prizes, I kind of like to give you a little bit of insight into why I'm here. Teresa alluded to this because we shared this earlier, but in 2010, my 24-year-old daughter, we have had one child. She was born premature, and so as her life went on, my wife was maybe overly protective. I was a cop for so many years, and my job kind of occupied all my spare time. I probably didn't give the time that needed to be given to my daughter because I was working extra jobs or whatever. As I got older and the realities of life set in when my daughter was in her teenage years, and she was rebellious like so many teenagers, I was looked at to kind of a disdain from, she didn't want to introduce her friends to me because I was a cop. This is probably not something that's uncommon in family where law enforcement is concerned, but after retiring, over a period of time, my daughter and I got closer and closer, and we have a place in East Texas up on a lake that I've been going to since I was a kid, and it's always a family tradition. Amber was able to come this year. She'd been unable to come in years past because she was working. And my wife had actually hurt her back, and she was up at the house, and Amber had left with a young man that we'd met. She had been hanging out with him up there in Jacksonville. We knew him. But she left at 4:30 on July the 4th, and we never saw her again. About 10:45 that night, I got a call from my neighbor on my cell phone that had indicated the Department of Public Safety had been to our residence in Tomball a couple of times, and they were inquiring as to where we might be. So our neighbor told her we were in East Texas in Jacksonville, gave her my cell number. At first it didn't concern me that much because I thought, well, my daughter might have gotten out and gotten some tickets I didn't know about, and so they were doing a sweep. But when I got the call a few minutes later, it was a DPS trooper, and he indicated he would like to come talk to me. Being a cop for 22 years, I have unfortunately been in a situation to have to deliver the message that somebody's family member had been killed. You do it in a way because it does not affect you personally because you don't know that individual. So I questioned him if it was about my daughter Amber, and he said, I still need to come see you. So my wife said, what's going on? And I made arrangements to meet him. We were out on the Farm Market Road, made arrangements to meet the trooper out there. And I went and met him, and of course, I already knew, but then you want to be in a state of disbelief. You think maybe it wasn't her, it was somebody else, and there was just a mix-up. But when he got out of his car, he had my daughter's purse in his hand. And the reality of facing that is something that Teresa's had, and I'm sure there are more people. I know of 2 people that are in a group with Reach Star Center that lost their son, but the reality still doesn't sink in. You almost think you're having a bad dream and you're going to wake up from it. But the bad dream is just that. It's a bad dream, but it's real. And as Teresa alluded to, you go through a gambit of emotions. I withdrew within myself. I really didn't know how to cope with it, and of course, like everything else, you get through day by day. But my mother and grandmother are buried there in that little town, so we made arrangements to have my daughter cremated and buried between my grandmother and my mom. And this is where she would have wanted to be. So as our journey went on, my wife was the one that kept trying to find a place we could go, somewhere where we could ask questions, get help. At least somebody had to have experienced what we'd experienced, and we looked for it and looked for it. And Evelyn found the Grief Resource Center. And being the mindset that I had as a cop, I said, I don't want to go because it's just not going to accomplish anything. They're not going to truly understand where we're at. And obviously, 2 years later, I am so blessed to have met Tricia Anderson. My wife couldn't be here today. She's not feeling well. 7 months after our daughter was killed, my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer. So not only was she facing the loss of her only child, she was facing that situation. So she's the most wonderful person that I've ever had in my life. She's the strongest person that I've ever had in my life. And she truly, every day we miss Amber. There's not a day that goes by that we don't have some slight remembrance of our daughter. I'll close with this story, but we were sitting in our room and Evelyn was trying to come up with music to be played at Amber's remembrance. And I had shut my eyes and turned my back to Evelyn. I had my eyes closed. And the vision that I got will always stay with me. My grandmother used to be one of the little ladies that would sit down, but she'd keep her purse on her lap because she thought somebody was going to take all the money. And it was in a solid white room. My grandmother was sitting on a couch, and my mother had her arm across Amber's shoulder, and Amber had her arm around my mom's waist. And Amber had the biggest smile on her face. And my mom looked at me, and she said, "It's okay, son. I've got her now." And I knew where Amber was. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry to do this. So I apologize to all of you for breaking down. But I really miss my daughter. I Okay. I wasn't going to do that. I told Trish I needed drugs, and she said she'd taken them all. So, anyway, we're gonna get into the next round of door prizes since we did so well in giving around the first batch. Anybody that wants one, bring a number up. Okay, number 97. 72.
Oh, that's me.
Oh, great. Okay, I've got one with my age on it, 38. 59. I'm going to go through these. 138. Do we have somebody with 138? Okay, we got a woohoo back there somewhere. I don't know where that's going to come. Number 76. 65. 103. 103. Well, I found the woohooer. Okay, as she's making her way up here, going woohoo, number 108, number 35, 37, 132. I think we should have started at 1 and counted back. 101, 52, 137, 60, 105. Whoa. We got a whoa on the left.